What is going on, everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today I am finally doing my official NBA draft lottery. Now that we finally have, of course, what the actual draft lottery is going to be. Again, it actually happened a little bit before this video came out, so it is really exciting that we do finally have this, and we finally know now where all of these teams are going to be, actually picking. And it's really, really good that we don't have to make any projections anymore on, will Houston have the first pick, will they have the fifth pick, this and that, whatever it may be. Now we do finally know, and of course, it is all going to be starting off with the first overall pick, which actually belongs to the Orlando Magic. They managed to win the 2022 draft lottery, and wow, do they have a pretty difficult decision, I think, for some on their hands. For me, I actually found this one pretty easy, but I know a lot of people are like really contemplating on who should go with that first overall pick. The Orlando Magic, I think, are right now, if you were to look on paper, what would necessarily be the thing they probably need the most, it would be a power forward. Again, luckily for them, there are two players that are both the best players in this class that definitely can slot into that power forward position. Of course, one of them being Jabari Smith, and then the other one being Chet Holmgren, who is going to be a real big mystery in the NBA on where he plays. Will he be, the starting center for a team, or will he go and play similar to what Evan Mobley did on the Cleveland Cavaliers, where he plays as a really tall power forward? And I actually think that is exactly what the Orlando Magic are going to do. I think they're going to take Chet Holmgren at pick 1. I would be very surprised if they didn't. I think it would be absolutely stupid, to be honest, if they maybe went with Jabari Smith, because I think Chet Holmgren is by far the most talented player in this draft class. I really do think we can compare him a lot to what Evan Mobley was able to do last season, where he was a 7-foot dude, basically, who played that power forward position. Then when Jarrett Allen went to the bench, played the center position. And considering there's been a lot of rumbles and whispers and news around the league that Mo Bamba will reportedly be leaving, I think it makes a whole lot of sense for them to draft another big man. And again, I think we could be seeing a really cool combination with him and Wendell Carter, because I think Wendell Carter, low-key, had one of the most underrated seasons for the Orlando Magic. Like, I just thought he was a short-ish center who, pretty much was similar to like a Tristan Thompson, but obviously I think a little bit better, a lot better now, of course, before the season started. But wow, did he prove me wrong. When I watched Orlando Magic games this season, I didn't know he had the ability to guard power forwards, switch on to power forwards, and again, actually be a three-point threat, and had a good mid-range on him. Like, I was super shocked, and he finished the season off with 15 points and 10.5 rebounds per game, as well as 32% from 3. This dude, I feel like, went very, very underrated, and I think he and Chet would be a really good combination, because both the players have a really good ability to be able to guard that center position, but I think also switch over to the power forward. And again, they wouldn't be as tall as what Jarrett Allen and Mobley are. Again, both of those players basically being 7 foot, and Carter, obviously only being 6'9", a little bit shorter. But I think it would be a really awesome combination to see both of these guys start together. And again, considering Mo Bamba's most likely leaving, I would assume, I think it'd be a really cool thing to maybe see again. Both of them start, but then when one goes to the bench, the other plays center, vice versa, and then again, see them start a lot of minutes on the court together. And I think that's the direction the Orlando Magic should go with. And again, it just makes a whole lot of sense. Again, Chet Holmgren, in my opinion, is the most talented player in the draft class. Again, a lot of people have their comparisons. Some people are calling him, Dirk on offense. To me, actually one that I really like to compare him to is just recently Evan Mobley. Of course, just having the ability to switch on the 4 and 5, while also having the capability of potentially being a solid defender in the league. Again, Mobley obviously going into it was a little bit of a better defender, but I think Holmgren definitely has a great mid-range, has a great three-point shot, and I think if the Orlando Magic were smart here, it's an obvious decision. Go with, Chet Holmgren and play him and Carter as like the, again, interchangeable power forward and, center. I think both of them could be a really good duo in the NBA. Of course, now we're gone with the second overall pick now. which OKC have. And again, unfortunately for them, I do have them, I do have Orlando taking Chet at 1, which really does suck for them because I think he would have been so good for this OKC team. But honestly, Chet Holmgren, even though he's a pretty big loss, there is a player who some consider to be even better than Chet Holmgren. And those people have a lot of good opinions to back up their reason. And that's, again, Jabari Smith. Jabari Smith is arguably the best player in this draft class. Even though in my eyes he isn't, a lot of people have him as the best player in their eyes. And I can definitely see why. Again, a 6'10" power forward who is extremely athletic. Again, his comparisons are absolutely insane, being compared to a bit of a Kevin Garnett type player, and again, a more perimeter-orientated type of Jaren Jackson Jr., I think is absolutely awesome. Again, Jaren Jackson being one of the league's most underrated players, I honestly believe he will take such a big step next season. I really do see Jabari Smith being a bit like him. Again, the ability, I think, to switch on the 4, 5, and 3, I definitely can see Jabari Smith doing. But it's mainly just his offensive power. Again, actually being a really good shooter, good slasher as well. He can really do quite a bit of things that you want, I think, as an NBA player. And this really does work out for OKC because the two main things they desperately need is a starting center and a starting power forward. And look, maybe you don't get Chet in, right? You've just lost maybe who you would have wanted to be your starting center, but right next to him is your next starting power forward, I think, now in Jabari Smith, who I think would fit really, really well in the team. Like, imagine how athletic that team would start to be, especially if, I think, if the rumors are true that they could trade up for Jaylen Durant. I'm not saying that they will, but again, Jaylen Durant's a 6'10" dude that has comparisons to a younger Dwight Howard and all that type of stuff. Imagine if they were able to get those two in. Even if they didn't get Jaylen Durant in, I'm sure they're going to be looking for an athletic center. And that starting 5 is going to be absolutely insane. Really, really young, really good. Again, you've got really tall guards in Giddey. And I think, of course, Lou Dort, I would assume. I think they might play SGA a little bit more as that small forward option, I think, on defense next season. Again, even Lou Dort at 6'3" can guard players much taller than him. Like, it's ridiculous. Really, really tall team. Everyone's athletic. If they can all get their 3-point shooting up and much more consistent, which I think a couple of them can. We've already seen Lou Dort and SGA become way better 3-point shooters. Jeez, team could be crazy. Team could be very scary. And I really like Jabari Smith for OKC. I just think the pick makes a lot of sense. And honestly, in any draft, if you were to see Chet Holmgren go at 1, you would probably be pretty disappointed because you'd probably be left with like a guard. And that's not what OKC right now, but lucky for them, that's not what they need, obviously, but lucky for them in this draft, there's a bunch of forwards right there for them to take, and one happens to be, honestly, regarded by some people to be the best player in the class in Jabari Smith. So, yeah, I really like this move by OKC. I think it makes a whole lot of sense, and that's why I do have them taking Jabari Smith with the 2nd overall pick. Again, another team that I think's done pretty lucky in this draft because it's so forward heavy and they needed forward in the Houston Rockets. There's of course one already there. Again, now that Jabari Smith and Chet Holmgren aren't on the board, they don't probably really care a whole lot anymore anyway because Paolo Banchero is sitting right there. A dude that is another really good power forward in this class. He obviously does a lot of things. Again, 6'10", pretty similar height, of course, to Jabari Smith, but I feel like a little bit of a different type of player. Again, Paolo Banchero, in my opinion, I think is a lot better at potentially switching over to that 5 than what, of course, Jabari Smith potentially would be. I think Banchero, he is a solid power forward. It does a lot of the things that you want offensively. He's actually got some interesting comparisons here, actually being compared to a bigger David West. Apparently a little bit of Blake Griffin in him as well. He's not necessarily the greatest defender, which I think is what separates him from Jabari Smith. Again, he does reportedly need to be better when it does come to the perimeter defense. But again, this is a really, really athletic dude that can low-key sometime actually play make, like can actually be really good with the handles, pretty good with the ball movement, just pretty good with the ball in his hands in general. Just has like a really, really diverse skill level, I think, for a player of his height. And again, offensively, he is pretty good. He's got a pretty decent mid-range. His three-point shooting could definitely potentially use some work, but hey, for a 6'10" dude that's just coming in, you know, it can take time. But honestly, the Houston Rockets have time. I think they're still really developing quite nicely, and yeah, I think his offensive fundamentals do help out quite a bit for this Rockets team. Again, they might want to look to bring in a good perimeter defender at that small forward position in free agency. I'm not too sure how Banchero and Christian Wood, I think center and power forward duo would go. Both of those players would be pretty athletic for their heights, and I think, the floor spacing would be really, really good, and the offense would be really nice. The defense, though, might be a little bit inconsistent, especially if Banchero doesn't, develop straight away into being a good NBA perimeter defender. But honestly, the Houston Rockets, they're in a situation where it doesn't really matter at this point. They can figure this out long term. It's not even a certainty how much longer Christian Wood will be on this team. Whether they have him, staying on the team will be up to a big question. But either way, they desperately need a power forward right now. Like, their big man depth is honestly one of the worst in the NBA. And to bring in a really, really athletic 6'10" power forward that can switch over on the center position, pretty good interior defender, while having a lot of those nice offensive fundamentals and skills. He's just a really good guy that you're definitely going to want to bring in if you are the Houston Rockets. So yeah, I really like this pick. Even though he might not add as much defense as what a Jabari Smith would potentially to the team, especially out on that perimeter, I still think it's a pretty nice pick for them. And yeah, again, in another class, if you were to see two forward/centers pretty much go in the first two picks, you'd be like, damn, I'm left with a guard here. But again, this class is so heavy with forwards that a team like the Houston Rockets could, draft, again, maybe the third best power forward in this class, but he would be probably the best forward in any other class, some of them. So yeah, Paolo and Banchero, absolutely still pretty much for the Rockets. They've done really well here, and that's who I would have them picking. With the fourth overall pick, the Sacramento Kings, this is a bit of a debatable one. A lot of people have them taking different players. For example, some people have them taking best available, who could honestly be argued whether that's Shaedon Sharpe, Keegan Murray, or Jaden Ivey, or even an AJ Griffin. But I've got the Sacramento Kings yet again taking the fourth forward in this draft class. Again, Holmgren could be considered obviously center, which I think he obviously was in college, but I think going to the NBA, he might play that Evan Mobley type role, which I've mentioned, especially on the Magic. But yeah, this is the fourth forward going in this draft class now, and honestly, I do see some people have them taking Jaden Ivey, 6'4" guard, but I just don't think the Sacramento Kings can take another guard. I don't think they really need to. Plus, Keegan Murray, in my opinion, is so talented. I really, really like this guy. Honestly, I would say he's probably one of my favorite players in this draft class. I honestly feel really bad for Portland Trailblazers fans, because I know a lot of them were kind of hoping they would win the lottery and they would be able to take this really, really skilled guy. Unfortunately, it wasn't to be for them, and he is now, kind of landed in the Sacramento Kings lap. For those of you who don't know, he's basically a 6'8" power forward that can guard the small forward position as well. Really, really good perimeter defender and floor spacer in the league. Honestly, I just would really like to compare him to a guy who I think could be a much, much better, of course, Obi Toppin type, Otto Porter, I think Jay Crowder type as well. And then obviously having the ability, I think, to develop into a Pascal Siakam type with maybe better, of course, perimeter defense. Again, he just really does what those type of role players, do in the league. Like, again, a comparison, a Jay Crowder, a dude that will guard the perimeter all game and shoot threes at a really good rate. And again, will always score you 9 to 14 points per game while being one of the best defenders on the court. But I think Keegan Murray has the ability to be much better than all of those players. And again, eventually maybe develop into a Pascal Siakam type, where he's just a really, really good athletic perimeter defender that can definitely score all over the court while just being a good three-point shooter. honestly, Keegan Murray, yes, he has the potential to develop into a star. But honestly, he's exactly what I think the Sacramento Kings should be looking for right now. Not a dude who needs to put up amazing shots in his first couple of years, but a dude who can come in and be a really, really good perimeter defender, and of course be, I think, good offensively as well, and just with the all-around the perimeter, whether it's being a defender or shooting threes. Similar to what the Chicago Bulls did a couple of years ago, where they took Patrick Williams, where they just said, hey, we need a really good perimeter defender, we need a good shooter, let's take this guy. I think Keegan Murray can obviously do that, but way better. I've liked Keegan Murray a lot, and he'd be perfect for Sacramento. Again, they've got some shot creators. They've got De'Aaron Fox. They've got, of course, Domantas Sabonis. Both of those dudes can put up big shots. But now that they've lost Buddy Hield, and there's a rumor, Harrison Barnes could be getting traded, something that Domantas Sabonis and De'Aaron Fox, and even Davion Mitchell, if he starts next season, don't have is none of them are particularly good three-point shooters. And all of them, I wouldn't say any of them besides Davion Mitchell are consistent perimeter guys either. That's why I think Keegan Murray would just be so perfect for this team. Get him in, put him on the perimeter, make him defend, and make him shoot. And who cares if he only averages you like 8 or 9 points per game in his first year? As long as he's hitting threes consistently and putting up good defense, that's the type of stuff that's going to get this, Sacramento Kings to the playoffs for like the first time in a billion years. And hey, if it all goes well, he could develop into being a 20-point per game type scorer, similar to a Pascal Siakam. But again, this is the type of guy I think they need to be taken at pick 4. Not another guard like Jaden Ivey. Yes, he would help out a lot, but again, Davion Mitchell I wouldn't say is as good as Jaden Ivey, but he ticks a lot of the boxes that Jaden Ivey already does, and I just don't think you need another one. Plus, they really like Davion Mitchell, and I think he'll potentially start next year. So let's just say they get Keegan Murray, and they keep Harrison Barnes. I think that team could 100% contend for the playoffs, especially in a weaker, Western Conference. Plus, get a good coach and fill out that bench. You've got Davion Mitchell at point, De'Aaron Fox at the 2, Harrison Barnes at the 3, Keegan Murray at the 4, and Domantas Sabonis at that 5. That starting 5 has got a lot that you need. Shot creating, 3-point shooting, perimeter defense, maybe lacks on interior defense. But yeah, I think that's a playoff team for sure, especially if they get a good coach and get that bench going. Alright, so with the 5th overall pick now, every single player I've had going has, of course, been basically a forward/center. But again, I'm actually going to be taking a guard now with the Detroit Pistons. I think they will probably need a guard, especially considering it is rumored that they really don't know what they want to do with Jeremy Grant. There's rumors they could, of course, trade him, but I think they could even contract extend him, especially if they don't like the offers. And again, they've already got some nice, good forwards on that team. I think it is a big mystery on what they're going to be doing with their guards. I think they might be looking to do, potentially Cade Cunningham could play the 2. He could play the 1 here and there as well. No one really knows what's going to be going on there, especially, considering they did start Killian Hayes for a lot this year. But I just wonder, what are they going to be looking at here? Are they going to be looking for that point guard, or are they going to be looking for that shooting guard? And I honestly think they might just go with potentially just a player who can really do the wing type of role, which in my opinion is Shaedon Sharpe. I think they might go Shaedon Sharpe here. I know a lot of people would have them taking Jaden Ivey, but I'm just not too sure of it. I think they will like Cade Cunningham to play maybe that point guard type of position for the foreseeable future. I really don't know what's going to be going on with Killian Hayes. I would assume they would be bringing him off the bench, but I don't know what's going to be going on there. Shaedon Sharpe, though, is a really, really good player that I think would just work really good for the team. He's a 6'6" shooting guard that can definitely potentially switch over to that small forward position. Again, in high school, I believe some websites actually had him ranked as the number 1 player in the draft class. He has fallen off a little bit, but that's because I think so many of these forwards have shown just so much. He's projected to go 4 to 8 right now. But again, I think I'll just have them taking him at pick 5. I think it makes a whole lot of sense. Again, Jaden Ivey would be really cool and all, but I just wonder if they would rather go for that, again, player that doesn't necessarily have to be a playmaker, which I think Jaden Ivey would want to be in the league. I think that Jaden Ivey's the type of dude that wants the ball in his hands. He wants to be setting up the plays, doing all that type of stuff. And considering they've already got Cade and they've already got Killian Hayes potentially off the bench, I would go for a more shot-creating wing in Shaedon Sharpe, who, again, basically what he's been known to be able to do is be a really good knockdown shooter. He potentially, again, does need to have some work on his shot selection, but he has been known to be a pretty good three-point shooter, pretty good mid-range as well, and a very athletic dude that can definitely cut to the basket, and of course, you know, again, get those dunks in, just be a really good slasher in the league. And again, he does stand out for his size. He's got a really strong build as well. I think he's an NBA ready type dude. Look, his shot creation might struggle to, you know, start off with, but again, I think he would be a future starting shooting guard that the Detroit Pistons would look at. And as I said, considering they've already got a couple of those dudes that I think want to play make and want to set up the team's offense in Cade Cunningham and Killian Hayes, I think you would rather go again for that wing that can definitely shot create and can slash and be potentially a pretty good perimeter defender down the line, rather than Jaden Ivey, who, again, is a really good perimeter defender, but I also think he wants the ball in his hands. He wants to be the number one playmaker, and I think he would excel maybe potentially better at that down the line. So again, that's why I've kind of got the Pistons taking Shaedon Sharpe. He also, who knows, could potentially come out of this draft class as being one of the best. I would say I like Ivy a little bit more than him, but I think for the Detroit Pistons case, it would be better to go for that taller, better shot creating guard. I just think he fits the system a little bit more than what potentially Jaden Ivey does. With the 6th overall pick, which I do have, of course, the Indiana Pacers selecting, and I really, really love the player that I've got them taking right now, and I've actually got the Pacers selecting Jaden Ivey at 6 overall. Now, Jaden Ivey, I think, is easily the best point guard in this class. Like, it's a pretty far margin from him and the next best. Again, even though I would say the next best is, of course, Dyson Daniels. Jaden Ivey, I think, just has him covered. I think he is a really, really talented player, really good defensively at 6'4", can guard the point guard and can guard the shooting guard, and can really switch on to both of them. Again, a couple of comparisons on what he's been kind of talked about in the NBA is when it comes to his defense, actually being talked about like similar to a bit of Josh Richardson, you know, in the terms of being able to guard point guard, shooting guard, and small forward efficiently, and potentially even Marcus Smart. A bit of those two players on the defensive end. Then on the offensive end, there's definitely a bit of Ja Morant in him as well. He's just a really, really good, capable player that I think would work so perfectly on the Indiana Pacers, especially if you partner him up with Tyrese Halliburton. I think that would be a really interesting duo to potentially see in the future. Again, both of those players are above, 6'4" and above. At that guard position, both are really, really good defenders that can switch from the 1 to the 3. They're all, both of them are pretty capable shooters as well. Again, this season, Jaden Ivey actually shot 36% from 3, which a little bit of a worry I do have is it could, might not carry over to the NBA in his first season, but it really doesn't matter. Again, I just think he and Tyrese Halliburton would be such a good duo. In his second season of college, he was actually averaging around 17.5 points per game on 5 rebounds. Really, really good defense. And of course, about 3 assists per game. Now, again, the only worry I think that kind of lies in his game, maybe other than sometimes he can be a bit of an inconsistent 3-point shooter, but again, to me, he'll definitely get better at that when it does come to the NBA. The only other worry I think some people are pointing out is he's not a very efficient playmaker, and that's why I think a couple of teams won't potentially look to draft him, with a really high pick, especially, if it was to come to when he would be like in top 3 contention. Of course, he's kind of fallen out of it because some of those teams that would be in that top, 3 contention would be looking for like a playmaking guard, this and that. But of course, I don't think, in my opinion, that should be taken away from him as a player at all, especially if he goes to the Indiana Pacers, because if you think about it like that, he and Tyrese Halliburton really, really, I think, would be a perfect young guard duo to have in the NBA. Again, the lack of playmaking that Jaden Ivey does sometimes have can definitely be made up for by Tyrese Halliburton, who has already shown on the Sacramento Kings and Pacers this season he averaged like 7 assists per game. And he wasn't even the number one like ball handler on the Sacramento Kings, and he had to share it again with Davion Mitchell as well. So when he's had so many guards to share it with on Sacramento, to average like 6 or 7 assists or whatever it was at that kind of pace, I think is so great for him. And going into next season, where if the Pacers were to draft Jaden Ivey, I just think it would be such a good thing for both of them. Again, I don't think Jaden Ivey would really mind Tyrese Halliburton being the facilitator / playmaker for the team, especially while he improves. I think again, Jaden Ivey, I think, would go really well with that. Both are incredibly good defenders, which would be really good for the Pacers because they've been known to have and really like defensive players over the years. He's a good scorer, really good athleticism, like a Ja Morant type player. And again, as I said, his defense is kind of like a Marcus Smart hybrid with Josh Richardson as well. So I really, really like him as a player. I think he makes a whole lot of sense. And yeah, in my opinion, I think the Indiana Pacers should take him with the 6th overall pick. Alright, now with the 7th overall pick, we do of course actually have the Portland Trailblazers, who did unfortunately drop a couple spots, which I didn't, they definitely didn't want to. They were one of the teams that was really hoping they could get like a pick 5 or 4 this year, where they could have maybe taken a Keegan Murray, who I thought would have really fit in so perfectly for their team. But of course, again, if you guys watched my official top 5, you would know I did have Keegan Murray going at pick 4 to the Sacramento Kings. Again, go check that video out if you would like to see why I had them taking him, this and that. But again, when it does come to pick number 7, I do think there is a player right now that is pretty NBA ready, in my opinion. I think he can come in and do a really fantastic job, and that actually happens to be Adrian Griffin Jr., or as most people refer him to as AJ Griffin. Again, I just think he would be such a good player for the, of course, Portland Trailblazers to bring in. Again, the way the Trailblazers, what they're kind of doing right now is we know that they traded a bunch of players like CJ, and Norman Powell to free up a lot of cap. We know that they've done that. They're going to be going into free agency, really trying to bring in a lot of players. We know it looks like they're bringing back Anthony Simons to a big 4-year deal. Nurkic probably will come back as well, meaning that they're probably looking to get that small forward and power forward, who they think they will probably try and sign a player / trade for maybe a dude like Jeremy Grant. But then there's also the option of drafting another one of those wing dudes, maybe to come off the bench or maybe to even start. And I think AJ Griffin really does fit that type of mold. Again, he's really a really good shot creator. He's a really good 3-point shooter as well. I think the shot creation is the thing that really does get me on AJ Griffin. I just think that is something that's really special that some players really struggle with. And honestly, some players do have trouble with converting it to the NBA. But I think on a team like the Portland Trailblazers, I think he'll actually do really well with something like that. Again, his defense could maybe improve a little bit right now, but there's honestly been comparisons to Jimmy Butler in terms of how much his defense could potentially develop in the NBA. Of course, in college, Jimmy Butler's shown he could be one of the best defenders, and as he got in the NBA, it started off pretty bad, but eventually got better and better. Again, I think AJ Griffin's one of those dudes that could do the similar thing, just gradually improve his defense. He's also got a really nice mid-range shot on him as well. And again, as I said, just a really solid shot creator coming out of college that can guard that shooting guard and small forward position. I think will be greatly wanted by the Portland Trailblazers. So I think it makes a whole lot of sense. I don't know if he would start in his first season, but just to bring a dude off your bench who could maybe average himself above 10 points per game or something in his first season on quality minutes would be a really nice thing. And plus, the capability and potential on the defensive end, I think, is something that would really excite a lot of Portland Trailblazers fans. And again, I just think it would make a whole lot of sense for them to look to draft a dude like AJ Griffin. But yeah, again, it is a really good pick, and I think Trailblazers fans, even though they didn't get Keegan Murray, should be pretty happy with this one. Now, moving over to the 8th pick, we've actually got the New Orleans Pelicans, who are a really weird team to actually kind of look at picking, because a couple months ago, I would have said they desperately needed a point guard, but it seems like they've really kind of changed their mold on how they're actually running things. In fact, they've actually been playing CJ McCollum a lot at that point guard position, predominantly the whole time pretty much he's been at New Orleans. They've been running him at that point guard spot. Again, he's been doing much better defensively there. His playmaking and facilitating has actually improved greatly on the Pelicans, and yeah, he even got them to the playoffs and looked like he was a really good player to have alongside Brandon Ingram and Jonas Valanciunas. And then you've got the guy who's, I wouldn't say he's forgotten. I think people still know he's in the NBA, but I don't know what he's doing. I don't know. He shares a very common goal in me, and that's consume as much KFC as we want, and that's Zion Williamson. I don't honestly know what he's doing, but I would imagine the Pelicans' plan would still be to run him as a point forward type of player, similar to what they did a little bit ago. And that's why I actually don't have them taking a point guard, considering I already know CJ McCollum's going to be their starting point guard, it looks like, for the future. And then you've already got Zion being that point forward type of player as well. I think they might just sign a veteran point guard to come off their bench and honestly go with more of a wing with this pick. And I actually think they might go for a guy like Johnny Davis, who I wasn't exactly extremely high on to start off with, but he's kind of come out of nowhere and really done well in kind of, I think, a lot of mock draft things. He played pretty well in his latter games in college, and I think, yeah, it's really put a lot of people to kind of put a different perspective on him. Again, he's a really crafty player with the ball in his hands, has a really, really good capability of scoring from the mid-range, and potentially, of course, just getting into the lane as well. He's known to be a pretty good shooter. Again, not necessarily a knockdown shooter so far from the three-point line, but I think considering, the Pelicans already got their shot creators figured out in their starting five with CJ McCollum, Brandon Ingram, and Zion Williamson, I would think it'd actually be pretty cool to bring a young shot creator off the bench rather, and I think that Johnny Davis would be a nice guy. Again, they've got Herbert Jones in that starting five too, who played really good defense all year and averaged around 10 points per game. They might be moving on from Devontae Graham, who they didn't like to play in the latter of the year. Again, so they'll be trading a shot creator away there. I would assume they're keeping Larry Nance and Trey Murphy, all those type of role players, and none of them are shot creators. So I think it makes a whole lot of sense to maybe bring in a dude that has a really nice mid-range, a really good capability of getting to the basket, and yeah, just coming in and doing that. And again, that three-point jumper, it will come. It doesn't necessarily have to be there straight away. Again, around Zion Williamson and Brandon Ingram, those players would love to drive the ball. I think it'll be a lot easier to get open shots eventually, and again, as that season progresses, I'm sure his shot creation will, I think, improve a lot better, and yeah, I just think it would be really nice. Again, although I have Johnny Davis going at this pick, I think someone in the comments might potentially argue with me saying, why didn't I take a dude like Dyson Daniels? The reason I didn't take Dyson Daniels with this pick is because, as I said, I don't think the Pelicans are looking for a point guard now. I think they really want CJ to be their point guard for the foreseeable future. I think they'll also really want to run the ball through Zion as a point forward type of role, similar to what he was doing in the year before he got injured. Again, Zion is an extremely underrated playmaker, and if any of you have watched him play basketball, you will know that. And then I think their idea would be to maybe go after a veteran point guard off the bench to just come in and play those type of minutes. So I think they'll be in more of a market for a shot creating wing, and that's why I have them taking Johnny Davis. So yeah, I think it would make the most amount of sense for them to, of course, do that. Now, with the 9th overall pick, we have personally one of my favorite players in this draft class. I think this would be an absolute steal from this draft, and yes, I said absolute steal for the San Antonio Spurs, and that actually happens to be Jaylen Durant. again, the way I would kind of describe Jaylen Durant, I think, for this draft is one of those guys who could potentially jump and you wouldn't expect it. Very similar to Josh Giddey with the Oklahoma City Thunder last year. I remember a lot of people didn't expect Josh Giddey to jump. I thought he was maybe going to go at 10 or 11. I know some people had him going at like pick 15, which was crazy. Oklahoma did their scouting. They saw how good he was in the NBL in Australia, and they were like, this is our guy. Again, he played against a bunch of older men, and you know, again, in the NBL, which is arguably the second best league in the world, and did really, really well. Had a similar path to LaMelo, pretty much averaged very similar stats, and yeah, I guess OKC were like, this guy's really good, and let's bring him in. And Jaylen Durant is another guy who I wouldn't be surprised if a team does actually trade up to try and get in that first round pick. Again, I believe he is projected to go about pick 12 or something right now, but I do have the Spurs reaching up a couple positions and taking him at the 9th overall pick. For those of you who don't know what Jaylen Durant is like as a player, he is a 6'10" center out of Memphis who is very much being compared to a younger Dwight Howard. Again, he's very, very good in the pick and roll. Also loves to post down his opponents. Again, great rebounder. Great athleticism for his size as well. Again, there's not many 6'10" centers out there that I think would be as good of a rebounder as he is. And the best thing is he's a very, very capable defender as well. So yeah, I really, really like, I think, that Dwight Howard comparison. I think it makes a lot of sense. He's a great rim protector. He can't really shoot at all, if I'm going to be completely honest. He doesn't have a mid-range on him. Doesn't have a three-point shot on him whatsoever. But again, as I just read a quote about him that does say, he is a man among boys. He is very, very strong. Great rebounder. And yeah, there's even this website that I'm looking at right now. They're projecting him to go at 9 or 10. But does say he does have potential, some top 6 type potential. And again, I really do believe that. I think if a team was looking to trade out of the top 6, don't be surprised if the Oklahoma City Thunder as well try and trade up to get this guy. And I just think it would make a whole lot of sense. Again, when the draft does happen, whoever gets this guy, and if they get him at 10 or something like that, I think I'll already be making a video on saying that he will be the steal of the draft. I think if you're a San Antonio Spurs fan, not only could he be the steal of the draft for you, and again, if let's just say that Chet Holmgren does play power forward on whatever team he does go to, this guy could legitimately be by far the best center in the draft class. Again, I know Chet might play more of a power forward center hybrid similar to Evan Mobley, but as a raw natural center, Jaylen Durant is insane, and I think it makes a whole lot of sense, especially if you are the Spurs. They desperately need a center. I think they've still got Jakob Poeltl, who is a pretty decent player, pretty good rim protector, shot blocker as well. They've still got Jock Landale, who is a very solid player as well, was their backup center. Again, I think he can also play power forward minutes as well. Landale's got a good three-point jumper on him. I really do think Jaylen Durant's the guy. Not only I think do they need maybe a potential future starting center, this guy would just be so good, so dominant. Realistically, I could see him in his first season. Let's just say they played him around 22 minutes a night. He's the type of dude that could come in his first year and maybe average you around 7 to 8 points per game on about 8 rebounds with elite perimeter defense for a first year player. I think the dude's that good. And yeah, if you're a San Antonio Spurs fan, you've got another steal from this draft class. And yeah, I really do hope they do consider him with the 9th overall pick. Again, moving on to pick 10, we have another dude that I think could be another steal from this class. Other than Jaylen Durant, I'd say this other guy could be one of those dudes where you hit the nail on the head. I think it is really, really good. I'll hit the nail with the hammer, rather, I should say. I just think it would be a really good move for the Washington Wizards who have that 10th pick, and that would actually be Dyson Daniels. I did mention him earlier when I talked about Pelicans maybe considering him for that 8th pick. Basically, he is a 6'6" point guard out of Australia, and anyone who's watched the NBA draft in the last couple of years knows that there are a lot of good Australian guards coming through the NBA. Again, we look at Josh Giddey in the most recent draft, pick 6 to Oklahoma. Great player, literally the future of Oklahoma right there. Then you look at the year before him, you got Josh Green, who really hasn't played much being in the NBA as a top 20 pick, I think it was. But in the playoffs, played some minutes for Dallas and actually looked like a really solid player. I think if he got the confidence and played for maybe someone else who'd give him minutes, he could explode into being a very good player as well. You had Ben Simmons, I believe, in 2016, and even though he's had a rough couple years, dude was still a all-star. Again, LaMelo Ball and RJ Hampton, not really Australian, of course, but did play in the Australian League, and again, did really, really well there too. And Dyson Daniels is pretty much, he's similar. Didn't play in the Australian League, though, actually play in the G League, but he's a 6'6" guard. You notice that a lot of these guards coming through from Australia tend to be pretty tall as well. 6'6" guard who has been known to be a pretty good defender as well. Some even saying he could have actually potentially grown to 6'7.5" with shoes on. So yeah, that is a pretty good height. Again, he seems to be a good ball handler as well. Can guard the 1 through the 3. Being called, a really good point forward. That could really explode in the NBA. A really solid two-way player as well. His defense seems to be very, very solid. Perimeter defense is reportedly one of the best in the draft class. Again, he might potentially need to improve on his shooting. That could definitely happen here and there as well. But he's also another dude that just played against real grown men in the G League. He's now got that experience. He did average 11 points per game. Again, his 3-point percentage was only 25.5%. Not great, but he also averaged 4.5 assists and 6 rebounds as well. Again, if he was in the NBL, that would be, I would assume, similar numbers. And to kind of compare what that would look like in the NBL, that would be, I think, a couple of assists lower than Josh Giddey and LaMelo Ball, but pretty on par. So yeah, he would be a really good player for the Washington Wizards. Best part is for the Wizards, they are of course looking to add in, I would assume, some defense and a point guard as well. Going into next season, it's going to be one of the first years in, I think, a long time for Washington where they have somewhat of an established core. Again, Bradley Beal, if he re-signs at that too. Kyle Kuzma at the 4. And again, you've also got Kristaps at the 5. Much more established than they've had in the last couple of years. All of those players are pretty good offensively. Not a whole lot of defense going around anymore. But I think, again, Dyson Daniels would come in and help that. I don't know if he would start straight away. His playmaking, I'm not too sure if it will be as good as a Josh Giddey or LaMelo Ball coming into his first season. But again, his defense has been known to be very good. And I think just to add that some of that Aussie toughness that I know he can definitely do, averaging that 2 steals per game and nearly a block per game, I think would really, really help the Washington Wizards and take them a lot further than what they're projected to go. So yeah, I think if they're able to get him at pick 10, it would be an absolutely amazing pick for them. But with the 11th overall pick in the 2022 NBA draft, we've actually got the New York Knicks, who I have them actually getting a steal in this draft. I've actually got them taking Benedict Mathurin. Now, this is a really, really tough pick because some people actually have Benedict going all the way up to pick number 7 in the Portland Trailblazers. A lot of people really, really like him. He has the really great ability to guard 1 through 3. But then there are just some people that aren't completely sold at him. And I've even seen a projection of him going at pick 16, which I think is ridiculous. I think he needs to go way higher than that. Again, I have some people have him at 13, and then some have him at 8. I've got him going at 11 here to the New York Knicks, where I just think this is the perfect situation for not only him, but the Knicks, especially if the Knicks are looking to keep Tom Thibodeau long term. He's a really big, defensive-minded head coach, and the fact is, if you draft Mathurin with this pick, you're able to bring in, again, a dude that has, ability to guard 1 through 3. Seems to be a decent shooter as well, which should help them out. 37% from 3. I guess a kind of player I might compare him to is a player that the Knicks actually recently lost, which kind of hurt them, was Reggie Bullock. I mean, Tom Thibodeau really liked Reggie Bullock, and he seemed to like him a lot more than Evan Fournier. And on paper, Evan Fournier would be the way better player, but it looked like the Knicks were better off with Bullock in the end because he just fit the way that, you know, New York played a lot more than what Evan Fournier did. And that is all basically come down to Tom Thibodeau at the end, you know, of the day. Again, as I said, he is such a good defender in my opinion. His handles aren't exactly that great, I wouldn't say. And again, he definitely has the ability to, I guess, kind of slash to the ring as well. But I don't think that's going to be exactly his, I think, thing that he's going to focus on when he gets drafted. Especially if it's to the Knicks. If he goes to the Knicks at pick 11, what they're probably going to want him to do is come off the bench and play decent minutes. And I think one night he could be guarding point guard, one night could be guarding the 2, one night he could be guarding the 3, and one night, if they're going pretty small, he could even be guarding the 4. But again, they're going to want to have him on the court for that defense, and of course, 3-point shooting. I don't think they're going to want him to be a shot creator. They've already got RJ Barrett. They've still got Julius Randle, and they've got Cam Reddish, who they're not even giving minutes to at the moment. So I don't think they're going to need him to be a shot creator. I think if the Knicks manage to get their hands on Mathurin, that will be, again, the ideal situation for them coming out of this draft, because recently what it's looked like they've needed is defense, because as I said, Tom Thibodeau is like the most defensive minded coach in the NBA, and half of his team just aren't exactly that great at defenders anymore. Unlike his, you know, team that he had in like the first year of coaching the Knicks. Losing players like Reggie Bullock really did kind of hurt what I think he was trying to target. So again, gaining a player back like Benedict Mathurin would actually be, again, a really good player for them to bring in. I really do like this move. The other player you could go after is Dyson Daniels, who I actually had going at pick 10 to the Wizards. There's, of course, a big chance they might try and trade up for him. And if they think Mathurin's going to go higher, they might try and trade up for him as well. But either way, I think they're going to try and land one of these guys. Chances are, though, both of them could go before this pick. But lucky for them, on my mock draft, I do have Mathurin dropping a little bit. But again, as I said, some people have him going at 7. And don't be shocked if like a team like the Portland Trailblazers really did actually reach a little bit and draft a guy like this. Because again, he would also fit the way that, you know, they're kind of playing as well. Alright, now moving on to the 12th overall pick, we've actually got the Oklahoma City Thunder. And I've actually got them taking Ousmane Dieng. Now, this is a really, really tough pick for me because this is not the player I think they will go for. And what I'm actually saying by this is I think there is a huge chance that we actually see OKC trade up to draft a guy like Jaylen Durant or, you know, someone like that. But again, with this 12th overall pick, again, because I haven't got them trading up, I'm just going to go, I think, best available and what I think really fits their need as well. And, you know, someone might say Mark Williams, but I don't think the Thunder are going to go after a Mark Williams. I think they're going to want a better starting center next season. And that would most likely mean, again, them either trading up or signing a young one like Mo Bamba or DeAndre Ayton in free agency. So again, I don't believe they will go after Mark Williams. So with this pick again, I do have Ousmane Dieng, who I think is actually a pretty decent pick as well. Mainly because he has a lot of veteran experience. For those of you who don't know what I mean by that is, Ousmane actually recently just played for the New Zealand Breakers in the NBL. Again, he is only about 18 and 19 years of age. But at 6'10", he has the ability to play small forward pretty consistently. I think it might take some time for him to maybe develop into a power forward along the line. I think right now they've just got him as a small forward type of player. Again, who he's kind of being compared to in the NBA right now is a much better, you know, kind of ceiling version of Kyle Anderson with shades of Paul George. And I can kind of see both again, even though Kyle Anderson is really, really slow, people don't actually, like, understand how good his movement can sometimes be. Like, to be that slow and still get around players in the NBA, you've got to have some type of skill. And again, this is what Usman does have as well. He's a really, really good, capable ball handler in the NBA. His three-point percentage isn't that great on 30%. That's one of the big issues again. OKC will definitely be looking to bring in a lot of three-point shooting this offseason, but considering I think they will most likely take a good three-point shooter at 2, probably sign a good three-point shooter in free agency, and you've still got players like Poku, Bazley, and Giddey, who are all developing as shooters in the league. I don't think it will be too much of a concern. I think Jang is just too good to maybe pass up if they're not going to be trading up. Again, he's just got really, really good skills for his height. Like, at 6'10", you don't often see a lot of 6'10" players, you know, guarding and playing the small forward spot anymore. You usually do see them move on to the power forward. And what I really like is too, is, you know, he's like most likely definitely really not lying about his height, because he did play in a very big professional league where they did have him listed as 6'10". Some websites say 6'9", but I think it is 6'10". He does look to be that height. And again, he did play for the New Zealand Breakers. Notable players to play for the New Zealand Breakers recently. A couple of years ago, RJ Hampton actually played for the New Zealand Breakers, where he ended up getting drafted, I think at like 19 or something like that. In that same draft, LaMelo Ball actually played for the Illawarra Hawks in the NBL. He was drafted at 3. And then again, the following year, Josh Giddey played for the Adelaide 36ers in the NBL, where he was drafted at 6. So again, it would be another NBL player that Oklahoma would be taking in the first round. And again, the last, NBL player, aka like Australian League player, that they did take in Josh Giddey, that worked out pretty well for them. So don't be surprised if they try their luck a second time and go after Usman Jen. And again, I think it would make the most amount of decision for them to kind of do that. Again, he played for New Zealand, which is not in Australia, of course, but it is in the Australian League. And yeah, again, he played really, really well, put up decent numbers. And as I said, we've seen so many NBL players get drafted in the first round in the last couple of years. Straight out of Australia, I would imagine Jang to be another one, and I think he will most likely go to Oklahoma. Now, with the 13th overall pick, I do have the Charlotte Hornets taking Mark Williams. I think they are a team that can afford to take Mark Williams. As I said, I think Oklahoma, they're kind of going to be looking to, I feel like, make some sort of push to get a better center in this draft, or sign one in free agency. Well, I don't necessarily know if the Hornets are going to do that. They're kind of stuck with Mason Plumlee, I believe, for now, who they could trade away. But in terms of centers that kind of fit maybe what they need, you've got Miles Turner, who I don't know if he'll get traded. I think Indiana want to keep him. He's potentially available, but with what they need, I don't necessarily know if they should go after a dude like Mo Bamba and DeAndre Ayton. Both of those prices could get pretty insane. Like, Mo Bamba could be looking for a 4-year deal worth around $14 million a year. Ayton's looking for the max. While if you look at Miles Turner, he's a dude that's just on like a 1-year, $18 million contract, and you can kind of see if he fits with the team. If he does, you can give him an extension. But for the time being, I think it would be nice to develop a backup big in a dude like Mark Williams. I feel like they've got the room to do it. I definitely don't feel like Mark Williams is a dude that should be coming in and averaging 30 minutes per game, which is what Oklahoma would probably make him do. I just don't like the fit. With the Hornets, though, with a team that I think will eventually go out and get their starting center, I don't know who it will be. They'll be looking for a backup. And I think Mark Williams is a dude that can definitely play around 12 to 17 minutes off the bench, develop nicely in his first year, and just kind of go from there. Again, he has had a lot of interesting reviews around him. A lot of people just say he is really, really raw, but he's kind of shot up in the mock drafts recently because of his ability to be a pretty good interior defender. and rebounder rather. He's been known to change and alter a lot of shots in the NBA. So I feel like that's what kind of the Charlotte Hornets are looking for, especially as well as he does have a really great job when he uses vertical and does not tend to foul. If he can, become a lob threat too, which I think is definitely, a possibility. Again, he is 7'2" rather, so it's a little tall. So it is quite a bit tall. I don't know if he will be able to necessarily be able to do that. But honestly, I think that height is definitely a lie. Like, I'm looking at one website right now that says 7'2". I'm looking at one website as well, the other one that says 6'10". It's really hard to get a read on how tall this guy is. I think this is a dude that will definitely have to wait till the scouting comes out to see a bit more and what NBA teams say about him. I'm going to say about 7 foot. I'll meet in the middle. I don't think he's 7'2", but I also don't think he's 6'10". So whether he can be a lob threat in the league will be an interesting thing to look at. But again, one thing I know is he will add interior defense and, of course, rebounding. And I think the Hornets, who are looking for a new starting center and a backup dude, I think bringing in a guy like Mark Williams to be your backup center would actually be a much cheaper alternative. And again, a dude that could one day maybe develop into being your starting center and just be like a little bit of a project player in the time being, which I feel like the Hornets can afford to do. And again, it would make sense to trade Mason Plumlee and then have this guy just come off your bench. So I don't mind it. If I was the Hornets, I think it makes the most amount of sense. And although he might not be the best player available, because again, some people have him going like 18, some people have him going at this pick, I think it makes the most amount of sense. And yeah, it's just kind of what the Hornets need. And it's a bit of a team fit situation. They could possibly even just trade down to do it, but I'm not too sure if many teams will, of course, buy on that proposal. But again, with the last pick of the lottery now, we have the 14th overall pick, which we've got the Cleveland Cavaliers picking. And I think a lot of people have this player that I have going to the Cavs. And I think a lot of people, again, as I said, just kind of got this same guy. But that's actually going to be Ochai Agbaji from Kansas. Again, he's actually one of the more older players in the draft. I believe about 22 years of age. And in my opinion, he fits the Cavaliers really, really well. I think the Cavaliers are looking to take that, next step now into being a playoff team. They're not looking to really develop a younger dude anymore. So to bring in a guy at 22 just really fits their kind of age criteria. It's much better than them potentially having to look to develop a 19-year-old. The beauty with Ochai Agbaji is he is such a good defender in the league as well. Can guard 1 through 3 at 6'5/6'6". Again, mainly a shooting guard, but a very, very nice shooter that I believe averages around 40% from 3. Like, really, really good numbers. He's kind of being compared to a little bit like a Malik Beasley, just a bit more consistent 3-point shooting and better defense, but the ability to be able to shot create potentially when he needs to. Again, people are saying that his 3-point percentage is already going to translate into the NBA, and so will his perimeter defense. Again, he actually also averaged 18 per game as well, I believe, in college, which is pretty decent. I feel like he's just one of those guys that's going to go straight from college to the NBA and just translate really, really well. And considering the Cavaliers, I think we'll move on from Cedi Osman, who's going to be on about $7 million. I think it's time for the Cavaliers to do it. Again, he's been so great for the Cavs, but sometimes his inconsistency on the defensive end, it just really doesn't fit into what the Cavs are trying to do. There'll definitely be 10 teams out there that try and trade for him. There's definitely a lot of teams that need a wing slash forward like him that can shoot the 3 ball pretty decently. And yeah, there'll be a lot of biters on Cedi Osman, but he just doesn't fit, I think, defensively in the Cavs game plan. So if they were to trade him, they're going to be needing some 3-point shooting. I still think they're going to be looking for a lot of perimeter defense as well. And again, bringing in Ochai, I think makes the most amount of, kind of sense to me. And I think he's also best available too. That's the perfect thing, is he's not only best available for the Cavaliers, but he as well really fits their team and what they're trying to go to. And I don't necessarily know if I can see him going a whole lot higher, maybe a team like the Hornets, again, they could look to take him, even though I don't know how much they need him. They could look at him, OKC as well, but realistically, a lot of these teams, I don't feel like are ready for a dude of his age, and again, I don't necessarily know how much these teams need him. Like, the Hornets have heaps of guards, so do OKC. Both of those teams should be looking at big men / power forwards at this point. The Cavaliers, yeah, they need a wing dude that can guard the perimeter and shoot threes, and he would realistically be the perfect one. And I, as a Cavs fan, to be honest, I might be letting my bias come in here, but this is the move I want to see us make. If we think a team is trying to get him at 12 or something, I don't know if we would trade up. Maybe we could offer like Cedi Osman and this pick, especially if that team's looking for a 3-point shooting forward. That could work out. I wouldn't mind necessarily doing that. Even though we could maybe get more out of Cedi, later on. But yeah, I like him. I think he's a good player, and I think it would be a good move for the Cavaliers to maybe make. But of course, if you haven't already, please make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel for all the latest NBA news and NBA content. Don't forget to comment your thoughts and opinions down below. Do you guys think this would be a good move / selection for the Cavaliers, or do you guys think it wouldn't? Again, I definitely would really like to know. What are your thoughts and opinions on the other teams? Again, let me know your thoughts and opinions down below. But as I was saying, please make sure to leave a like, subscribe, and comment. And I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.